Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have just a couple more devotions talking about some of the basic doctrine of the church and the ordinances and just where they come from. Here's Luke chapter 22, beginning in verse 14. When the hour came, he, meaning Jesus, reclined at the table and the apostles with him. Then he said to them, I have fervently desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat it again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he said, Take this and share it among yourselves. For I tell you, from now on, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. And he took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them and said, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way, he also took the cup after supper and said, This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. But look, the hand of the one betraying me is at the table with me. For the Son of Man will go away as it has been determined, but woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. So they began to argue among themselves which of them it could be who was going to do it. So here we see Jesus giving what's called the first Lord's Supper or the first Eucharist or the first communion, but it's the Passover meal, isn't it? It's the Passover time of year. They come together and they commemorate what happened as Israel was miraculously delivered from slavery in Egypt, where the households that had the blood of the lamb smeared over the doorpost were passed over by the spirit of death. And now they eat this meal to commemorate, but Jesus is taking the elements and equating himself with the elements, saying this body, this bread, this is my body. This cup, this is my blood. He's fulfilling then what was foreshadowed by the Old Testament Passover meal in a really cool way as we take communion. This joins New Testament Christian churches with Old Testament Judaism. What they referred to as the Passover meal has pivoted upon the apex of the crucifixion and resurrection into the new covenant and is now commemorative. When Orthodox Jews gather and take the Seder meal, they eat and drink in anticipation for the Messiah's arrival. There's this one cup that is in anticipation. It is prophetic in nature. There's like I talked about in the sermon about this, that there's modern day Messianic Jews sometimes will abstain from that cup because it seems to be drinking in denial of the Messiah. Jesus has taken the elements of the Passover meal and he said, This is me. All along it was Jesus. All the while, all throughout the scriptures, they all just point to Jesus. Every Old Testament story, including the Passover, pointed forward to Jesus. When Jesus gave this discourse that we sometimes call it the zombie discourse, because Jesus looks at the crowd and he's like, Eat me, or you can't go to heaven. That makes sense based on this teaching, where he said, This is my body, this is my blood. It's the elements of the Passover meal. When you come upon an Old Testament passage that doesn't make sense, see how it points to Jesus and it will click into view. I've seen so many militant atheists come to Christ while teaching obscure Old Testament books that are very seldom taught. And it's because they sometimes ravage through these Old Testament books and they take stories out of context and they're like, look, this is hard to accept, therefore Christianity is not true. And then when you teach them in context and you show how they point to Jesus, they were prophesying Jesus, they were foreshadowing Jesus, they're fulfilled in Jesus, suddenly what they used as a weapon is dismantled in their hands because it was never theirs to begin with. It was always about Jesus all along. The Passover was about Jesus. That's how we interpret the Old Testament, and that's why we take communion today. So ready your heart for our next communion.